So before diving deep into each of the three phases of the creative placemaking process, I wanted to use this chapter to review and introduce what each phase is all about. So as I mentioned before, the steps in this course for creative placemaking is informed by Placemaking Chicago's step-by-step guide on how to use the placemaking process to make your neighborhood a better place. These are the steps that I use to inform my practice when facilitating placemaking workshops for youth in the Brownsville neighborhood. This guide has been super helpful in curating a strategic and organized process for young people to follow, and even for them to remember when they move on to implement their own creative placemaking process. All communities are unique in their own way, and although two communities may be facing the same challenges, there is a guarantee that residents from these communities would share differed perspectives on the causes and solutions to those challenges. So with this in mind, the creative placemaking process can look different for each neighborhood. So while planning, envisioning, and implementation are the key steps for this process, the way that they are implemented may differ based on the community that you work with and the challenges that you are addressing. These are the steps I follow in my practice when guiding local at-risk youth on their placemaking projects. And like I said before, I'll give you a quick overview of what each phase encompasses. And I'll dig deeper into the activities and expectations you should have in each phase in the following chapters. Phase one is the planning phase. Every great placemaking process begins with planning. This is the first phase as outlined in Placemaking Chicago's step-by-step guide. This phase involves assessing community challenges with your community partners, of course, and using these challenges to decide on solutions that can be implemented at a specific site. You'll select this site during the planning phase. Identifying additional key stakeholders and establishing a timeline for implementing the project also happens during the planning phase. So in selecting a site, you want to lead your community partners on a process that helps them identify which site they would like to implement their placemaking project. And so one example that Placemaking Chicago has is for having your stakeholders and partners to have them list out 10 good things about spaces in their neighborhood and 10 things that need improvement. And based on those responses and the ability for your partners to agree on a specific challenge, then you're able to select a site because that site may be a host of those challenges that were mentioned. You can also use the 10 good qualities of a space to help guide the solutions that you want to implement into a site that is struggling. Once you select a site, you can identify the key stakeholders that you'd want to engage in the decision-making process for how to revitalize that site. They may live, work, or play in this area. They may have a stake in the site. They may use it for whatever purposes, whether formal or informal. You want to invite them all to the process. And depending on how big of a problem you're solving, you would use that to establish a timeline with your partners as well. So feel free to get creative with how you assess the challenges in the community with your partner. This can happen through initial meetings or visioning workshops with your partners. The second phase, the envisioning phase, is where you begin bringing your partners and the stakeholders you identified in the planning phase to the decision-making table. This phase is where you would hold your traditional design and visioning workshops with residents, merchants, and other key stakeholders that live, work, and play in that area. The collective vision helps to develop your short-term and long-term action plans that help guide the implementation phase. The purpose of convening key stakeholders and community residents is to develop a collective vision from my diversified perspective, to create a creative placemaking project that actualizes a vision for change. Last but certainly not least is phase three, the implementation phase. Phase three, your implementation phase, is where you implement your short-term and long-term goals. These goals are developed from the collective vision that you developed during the envisioning phase back in phase two. This is a very collaborative process where even more stakeholders might be invited to the table to get the project running. We will go into great detail on what implementation can look like and what it will take to make this successful. The planning and envisioning phase must be successful in order to properly position your partner to implement, manage, and maintain the placemaking project without you. In the next three chapters, I will dive deep into each of the three phases of the creative placemaking process, and I'm super excited to lead you on this journey. After the three chapters, I will introduce exiting communities, and that will conclude this course.